Alright, let's go over Redux. So React and Redux work together. So why do we need Redux? What is it? Basically, in React, sometimes you want to pass down your state as props. You want your comments and your posts to communicate. And how React normally works is you can only pass state as props downwards. Like the app can send stuff to the posts, and the post can send data, the state, to the comments. However, it can't work the other way around. For some reason, comments can't affect posts at all or anything else. A component that's like that's inside another component can't change the state in the component, the upper component. So that's why we need Redux. Redux takes state and takes it out of the equation and stores it completely separately so that any component can access the state. Okay, we're gonna learn Redux soon. Now Redux has a lot of weird terminology like reducer, action, dispatch. It's super annoying. However, I'm not going to explain all the weird terminology to you right away. We're just going to jump into code and stuff. But what you need to know in Redux is how to store state, how to get the state, how a component gets the state, how to change state. And that's the three things you need to know. Okay, let's code. Alright, let's learn Redux. So there's four things you need to know in Redux. You need to create a store, and the store is where you put your state. It's the container for your state. And then you need to link your app and your state using this thing called provider. So link them together. Then we're going to create these things called actions and reducers, which help us change the state. Then we'll use map state to props in our component to get the state. Okay, let's start with the store. I'm already coding this out. Let's start actually here. Go to package.json. You can see I installed 3 different things from npm for Redux, npm install Redux, React, Redux, and then Redox Thunk. And the Redux, that's just basic Redux, React, Redux. It allows us to link the React and the Redux together. And then Redox Thunk, Redux doesn't support asynchronous code like the async and the promises. It doesn't support that out in the gate. So we need Redox Thunk for the async stuff. So install that. And I'm going to do yon start just to Cool, so this is the app we're going to build. We get some stuff from JSON placeholder, the API, and then we can change the background. And that's it. Now this looks really simple, but what you can do in this that you can't do in React is you can have the components affect like the app. So like the below components affect the upper components. So right now users is inside of app, and normally in React like users couldn't do anything to app because users is inside app for some reason. However, Redux allows it so any component can access the state. Okay, so let's start off by creating the store, and I created a file in here called store.js, and we import Thunk from Redux. So that's the Redux Thunk for async function. And then you'll see this thing called root reducer. We'll get into that. And then from Redux, you need this thing called create store apply middleware. to create the store and then to add thunk to it. So we're going to set an initial state to nothing so far, and then we're going to have a middleware object of just this array. So if you want to add more Redux middleware besides thunk, you can do that by putting it in this array. Then we set our store variable equal to create store, the function, and we pass in this root reducer. We'll get into the root reducer, but you need to pass in the root reducer soon. The initial state, and then apply middleware. This lets us add middleware, and then this ... middleware. This just means add everything from this array. That's it. So yeah, and more. So ... apply middleware. Cool. Okay, and then we're exporting store. So that's our store. We created it. Now we need to add it, provide it to our app. Let's go to index.js, and you can see this is pretty simple. We're importing the store from our store thing that we made, and then we're importing this thing called the provider from React Redux. The provider, it provides the state to the entire app. And you can see inside the provider tag, we have this store attribute set equal to the store that we created. Okay, cool. So we've knocked out the first two things. We've created our store, and then we've provided the state to the app. Now let's get into these actions and reducers. So we'll start off with reducers index. So remember, we passed in this root reducer into the store, and reducers are used to change state. So it's kind of like set state in Redux. That's what a reducer is. We'll go to index, and right here in the index file, this is our root reducer. You can have many reducer files, but Redux, it only takes in one reducer, so it combines all your reducers into one, and that's the root reducer, which is like pretty much a set state function in React that allows you to change the state. So you need the combine reducers to create the root reducers, and then you can add any files, any reducer files that you have. So I created this reducer file, and you add them all in here, and then this is the name that you'll refer to it in the map state to props and stuff. So yeah, so we're adding our user reducer. You can create any reducer you want. And so this is going to change the state for us. The actions, these are like the event listeners. This is like the code for the event listeners pretty much. It's like an action, an event. And it sends the data from the event to the reducer to change the state. So it looks kind of confusing. Let's go into it. We'll go into components, and let's see what we did. Okay, so you can see we're fetching this stuff. See, we're fetching. It should be fetch users since it's users, but I'm tired. But so yeah, so we're fetching the users, and like the React one, we're adding them to here. That's our state, and then we're going to be able to change the background with anyone. Okay, so let's see how we do the users. So this.props.fetch posts. Let's check that out. So in order to access the state inside a component, you need this connect function, and you go down. So usually the export defaults up here. This stuff is usually up here with the RCC tab and stuff. So you want to move that down here and use the connect function and add map state to props. And then in here you have this object with all your actions. These are all the actions that you create, all your events that you want to use. And then at the end you have these parentheses with the name of the class, the component, or function. Yeah, the component. So that's what you do. That's how you connect it. And how you access state in Redux is with a map state to props. So you just take the state from Redux and you turn it into props. And you can see we're getting state from users, we're getting it from the reducer. But you can see we have this user state, which is like this, and then we have the background state. So that's how you get state from your store. Okay. So you can see when we're doing this, we're doing this.props.fetchPosts, which is an action. You can see it's an action we have to pass in. So let's check that out, and then we're mapping the state or the action to props so we can use it. So let's check out the actions. So in here, I just have some types. It's just some string. I think this looks a little better than just typing out the string, because just having the string looks confusing. So these are some variables, the actions. Okay, so I'm importing these strings from here. And then you can see an action, it's just like your event listener code. It's just a function, export const fetch posts, and then export const change background. It's just like a function. So let's see here. Now this is a Redox Thunk function, and you need Thunk to do asynchronous calls because it gives you access to this dispatch thing. And dispatch just sends the data from the action to the reducer. It sends the data to change the state to the reducer, from here to the action to the reducer. And you usually don't have access to it because it does it automatically, but with async you need it. So we're fetching our data from this website, and we're making it, turning it into JSON. And then this is the important part. We're calling dispatch, and we're setting type to fetch users. So it's that string. And then we're setting payload to posts. So that should be users actually. Now, what is the payload? Well, the payload is just the data that we got from there. So the type is just what you want. You'll see soon what type is. And then the payload is the data that you want to send to the reducer. So let's go check out what the reducers are. Let's see this user reducer. Down here we have reducer. You can create many different reducer files. And you want to set an initial state with the reducer. And then the reducer, it's just a function. It takes in the initial state, and then it takes in the action. And the action, one sec. The action is what is it's the action, the stuff that we coded here. It's the data from the action. So you can remember action.type. We sent it here in the dispatch, action.type, fetch users. So we have the switch statement here. It checks the type. If it's fetch users, we want to return the state that we already have. And then we want the items to be the action.payload. Action.payload, so that's the data that we got. So we're using the reducer to change the state from nothing to the data that we get using this stuff here. And that's how it works. You just use the actions, you set the initial state with the reducer, and then you use the switch statement with the actions to determine what the state is. And then you can, it's like a huge thing. Yeah, so that's what you do. And that's how we got our data. Now let's check out this change background thing. Now you couldn't do this, well you could do this, but like the way we're doing it, you couldn't do this without Redux. Okay, let's go back to components. You can see we're mapping, we're getting the data with props again. Okay, so background, you set something we're getting something called a background in here. Then we're doing a thing called change background. This.props.change background. Then we're passing in the state of the background. So there's something going up with the background, you know. So yeah, we're getting the state in the background. And then we're using the event listener to listen for a click and see what happens. So let's go to the app, and you can see we're also getting the background with the map state to props, and we're saying if the state in the background is true, don't give it this class. If it's false, give it this white class. So we eliminate the background. Now, typically you couldn't do this in normal React with the users changing the app, because the users is inside the app, so it's not supposed to go upwards and change this. But with Redux you can. With Redux you can access state anywhere in your app. Okay, you can see we're getting the state. Let's check out those the actions. Yeah, remember in the component where we have this action, change background. We have the action there. Okay, let's see what it does. Actions. So export const change background equals background. So it's taking something in. We'll go back to show you what that is. And if background is true, we want the type to be change background, the string. If the background is true, we want it to be not background, so false. And else, if it's false, also want the same type as before, same string, so the reducer understands what it is. And then we'll set the background to not background, so not what it is. So let's see what we're passing in the background. We'll go in the reducer first, actually. Okay, so we can see we set a background, an initial background, to true, so we can access it, and then adding it here. Case, change background, remember the types. If it's the change background, which is what we sent the action not type, and then the background action not payload, so it's either true or false. Remember we sent the data as either true or false. And there we go. That gives us our state. So just want to show you we passed in the background there. And then we're accessing the background here. So it's initially set to true, so we can use that. However, it'll change based on what we do. Cool. So that's Redux. I know it seems kind of weird, especially just remember these 3 steps, and you can use this code as a template on GitHub if you want. The thing about Redux is you gotta do it. You gotta code something with Redux yourself, because if you don't, the actions, reducers, there's no way you can wrap your head around that. It'll really confuse you because it's so abstract. So go out, practice. Nice job, guys.